this is Crash Course US Government, and today we're learning about a medical miracle, fully functioning humans with no brains and no hearts, also known as Congress. So first, I want to distinguish Congress from other legislative groups like Parliament. Not that Congress has ever been distinguished for anything. The three main differences lie in elections, voting, and leadership. Regarding elections, parliamentary electorates need a political party to put their name on the ballot and win, but congressional electors need to win a primary to get nominated and then be elected by popular vote. As for voting, parliaments choose to vote for or against the government, while Congress votes yea or nay on issues and does much of its work via representation or committees. And finally, regarding leaders, Parliament selects an MP who takes on most of the legislative power. A congressional leader, by contrast, is voted in by the people. Also, Congress makes laws, but Parliament does not. Going back to the inception of Congress, the founders frequently emphasized its importance and wanted it to equalize small and large states. Congress was also intended to be the most powerful branch of government and, as such, was given a wide and diverse array of powers. Some of the more prominent powers include the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imports, and excises, the power to borrow money, regulate commerce with foreign nations and among the states, and establish rules for naturalization and bankruptcy. They are also given the designated power to coin money, set its value, and punish counterfeiters. Because everyone trusts Congress around money. I mean, look at our $20 trillion debt. What's that, Erin? It's going up?
Congress must also fit the standard of weights and measures, issue patents and copyrights by inventors and authors, create courts inferior to the Supreme Court, and, Mr. Guy's personal favorite, establish a post office and post roads. Congress must also define and punish pirates, which sounds like you could get very corrupt very quickly. Reminds me of a certain group of people. Can't think of who. Anyways, Congress can also declare war, raise and support an army and navy, make rules for their governance, and provide for a militia. It can also exercise exclusive legislative powers over the seat of government and other place purchases of federal facilities.
Finally, Congress can utilize the darling of conservatives, the Elastic Clause, which grants Congress the power to pass all laws necessary and proper for carrying out its enumerated list of powers. So you may ask, what is Congress doing when it's not carrying out all of its legislative duties? The real question is, when is Congress ever doing anything? Just kidding. Congress can also propose amendments, advise the presidents, and issue treaties and confirmations.
Let's review the quote-unquote leadership positions of Congress. There's the President of the Senate, whose salary is around $233,000, not including donations from the NRA. The President is the principal leader of the Senate. The President typically will preside over the daily sessions of the Senate, preserve order in the chamber, and state parliamentary motions. The President can also sign legislation and act as the official spokesperson for the Senate. Next is the President pro tem of the Senate, and their salary is around $193,000. The primary roles assigned to the President's pro tem are to preside over the Senate in the President's absence and exercise the powers and duties of the President in his or her absence. In states where the Lieutenant Governor presides over the Senate, the President pro tem usually assumes duties associated with the President. The Speaker of the House has a salary of $223,000. The Speaker is the principal leader of the House or Assembly and typically will preside over the daily sessions of the chamber, rule on parliamentary questions, appoint committee chairs and members. They can also refer bills to committee, sign legislation, writs and warrants, and act as the official spokesperson for the House or Assembly. Recently, however, he's been trying to take healthcare away from children, but it's always good to set goals. Then there's the Speaker pro tem, whose salary is $193,400. The primary roles assigned to the Speaker pro tem are to preside over the House in the Speaker's absence and exercise the powers and duties of the Speaker in his or her absence. In some states, this is an honorary position, with few substantive duties assigned. Next is the all-important Majority Leader, whose salary differs between $193,400 to $193,900. The primary functions of a Majority Leader usually relate to floor duties. The Majority Leader acts as the lead speaker for the Majority Party during floor debates and assists the President or Speaker with program development, policy formation, and policy decisions. There's also the Majority Caucus Chair, whose salary is $193,400. The Majority Caucus Chair generally develops the Majority Caucus agenda, with the principal leaders presides over the Majority Caucus meetings and assists with the development of policy. Then there's the Majority Whip, whose salary is $193,400. The duties of the Majority Whip are to assist the floor leader and generally communicate the majority position. Next, there's the Minority Leader, whose salary differs between $193,400 to around $193,900. The Minority Leader is the principal leader of the Minority Caucus. The Minority Leader is responsible for developing the minority position, negotiating with the Majority Party, directing Minority Caucus activities on the chamber floor, and leading debate for the minority. There's also the Minority Caucus Chair, whose salary differs between $193,400 and $193,900. The Minority Caucus Chair presides over caucus meetings and assists the Minority Leader with policy development. Finally, there's the Minority Whip, whose salary is $193,400. The major responsibilities for the Minority Whip are to assist the Minority Leader on the floor.
One of the central relationships in our country is that between the government and its constituents, and due to the diverse makeup of both, there is a wide variety of views on such a relationship. There's the representational view, in which members vote to please their constituents in order to secure re-election. Then there's the organizational view, where constituency interests are not vitally at stake. Members primarily respond to cues from colleagues in the organizational view. And finally, the attitudinal view is when the member's ideology determines his or her vote.
As the role of government in our lives has changed and evolved, so has the Senate. Two important changes in Senate history include media coverage becoming higher for incumbents and thus causing incumbents to have greater name recognition, and members securing policies and programs for voters. Changes have also included the makeup of Congress. As you can see, diversity has increased immensely throughout the years, though mainly in the House, where direct representation of the people's desired candidates is more prominent.
Speaking of history, let's review the 6 phases of House history. There's the powerful House, which are the first 3 presidential administrations. Congressional leadership was supplied by the President and the Cabinet, and the House of Representatives overshadowed the Senate. Then there was the divided House, which included Jackson, Lincoln, Henry Clay, and Thaddeus Stevens. It started with Jackson expanding the use of vetoes, and then slavery caused disunity in both houses. So the Civil War caused Southerners not to attend. And then the radical Republicans wanted to harshly punish the South, but moderates cooled their tempers eventually. The next phase would be when the speakers ruled. That included Thomas B. Reed, Joseph G. Cannon, Teddy Roosevelt, and Grover Cleveland. It started when the Speaker of the House began to gain power at the turn of the century. And B. Reed became Speaker in 1889 and gained powers like appointing chairmen and members for committees, and designed rules for committees, and decided what topics would come up for debate and who would be allowed to speak in debate. Then there was the House revolting, which included Joseph G. Cannon. It started with a 1910 revolt against the Speaker, Joseph G. Cannon. The Speaker lost many of his new powers that fell to party caucuses, Rules Committee, and chairmen of committees. The next phase was the members ruling, which included LBJ, John William McCormick, Richard Nixon, and Emanuel Seller. It started with Democrats passing civil rights legislation in 1965 after delays from committee chairs. It resulted in chairmen losing much of their powers, including needing to be elected by members of the majority party in the future and not being allowed to delay meetings and hold them in private. Then subcommittees came about with their own chairs, individual staffs greatly enlarged by a ballooning number of chairs and sub-chairs. And finally, the leadership returned to the House and the Senate. With power so evenly distributed, little got done. Some of the Speaker's power returned by sweeping 1995 legislation. Newt Gingrich rose and fell quickly due to a government shutdown he partly caused. Dennis Hastert, Newt's successor, is regarded as the most powerful Speaker ever. Congress used to have mostly single-term congressmen and congresswomen, but by 1950, the career congressman had become the staple of the branch. A 1995 amendment to impose term limits got past the House but was killed by the Senate. Despite this, the 1990s saw many new congressmen and women, mostly due to a 1990 census redrawing of districts and exposing congressional candidates to new voters. More than 90% of incumbents who run win their seat back due to visibility and financial support. There are also 2 different types of districts. Marginal districts, where incumbents win close elections by less than 55%, and safe districts, where incumbents win more than 55%.
Most of Congress's power is found in its committees and subcommittees. There are 3 kinds of committees: standing, which are permanently established committees in charge of legislation of a certain subject area; select, which are committees appointed for limited time and purpose; and joint, which are committees on which both senators and representatives serve. There's also a subcommittee of joint, which is called a conference, in which joint committees are made to resolve differences between House and the Senate.
One of Congress's most important jobs that often requires committees is turning a bill into a law. Let's go to the thought bubble. First, a bill must be introduced by a member of Congress. That bill is then referred to a committee for consideration by either the Speaker or the presiding officer of the Senate. Revenue bills must originate in the House, but most bills die in committee. After hearings and markup sessions, the committee reports a bill out to the House or to the Senate. Bills must be placed on a calendar to come for a vote before either the House or the House Rules Committee, which sets the rules for their consideration. Bills are then debated on the floor of the House or the Senate. If there are major differences in the bill as passed by the House and the Senate, a conference committee is appointed. The bill then goes to the President. The President may sign it or veto it, and if they veto it, it returns to the House of Origin. Both houses must support the bill with a 2/3 vote in order to override the President's veto.
Congressional staff has increased dramatically over time, with House members constantly holding the most, currently around 7,500. There are also staff agencies such as the Congressional Research Service, also known as the CRS, which acts as a research, fact-checking, and information center for Congress. Then there's the General Accounting Office, the GAO, which performs audits on the executive branch and makes recommendations about policies based on financial costs. Then there's the Office of Technology Assessment, also known as the OTA, which evaluates policies with significant use or impact on technology. And then finally, there's the Congressional Budget Office, also known as the CBO, which advises Congress to the economic impact of different programs. What are congressional caucuses? Caucuses are an association of members of Congress created to advocate a political ideology or a regional or economic interest. There are three types of caucuses: inter-party caucuses, in which members share ideologies; personal interest caucuses, in which members share an interest in an issue; and constituency caucuses, which are established to represent groups, regions, or both. Now, with respect to the modern Congress, what changes were made to Congress post 9/11? For starters, the new 9/11 Commission recommended Congress make fundamental changes in how it oversees agencies involved in intelligence gathering and counterterrorism. Congress then passed some of those proposals after some opposition from both parties. Overall, Congress, for all its faults, remains one of our most enduring democratic institutions and represents the truly American ideal that we must always seek a more perfect union, no matter the state of our country. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to be awesome.